We have seen now those three candles lighting our path as we continue our journey into this great season of preparation. My youngest sister gave birth to a premature baby. She was supposed to deliver her baby last August, but by God's grace, she gave birth April of this year. The baby is doing well. And this is one thing that I and my family are happy and rejoicing for the many prayers of so many people, especially for my sister and for her baby, Cherie. It is a reminder for us of the presence of God in our lives. And so we rejoice and we give thanks. Last night, I received a video message from my sister showing me a video of how Cherie, the baby, was trying to move for the first time from one side to the other, moving and turning her body. You know, she was trying to reach something, and my sister was just coaching her and telling her, you could do it, you could do it. And then finally, as soon as she turned her body to the other side, she stopped crying because she was able to reach the toy that she wanted to hold on. And I could see the face of my sister, and I could sense the joy of my brother-in-law who is in Colorado for that rejoicing and that joy that comes within their midst, seeing their firstborn daughter in that first act that she has done. I have sensed the joy and the gladness of Maria Ressa and Dmitry Muratov, the two journalists who was given the Nobel Peace Prize for the year 2021. The last awardee of a journalist that was given the Nobel Peace Prize was for so many years, more than about 36 years ago, the last time that a journalist received such honoring, such award, international award. And you could see the sense of their happiness as they deliver their acceptance speech. Each one of us have our own experience of rejoicing. Parents, the first moment when they see their children or their child being born. Parents when have received an achievement of their children. Young people of today, the moment you probably receive your first cell phone, you could see their smile reaches to their ears. There's so many things that God has given us for us to rejoice and to be glad. But the gospel today, the gospel and the readings today that tells us from what the prophet Zephaniah is telling us to shout and rejoice, O Israel, and rejoice, O people, as the letter to the Philippians tells us, is something, a rejoicing and a joy that is not short-lived. The Lord wants us to experience that joy that is eternal. A joy that we will be able to live as we continue our journey through this earth, despite the pandemic, despite any suffering, despite any struggle in life. We can still put a face of rejoicing within the midst of people. And that is what God wants us to experience. And we can only experience that joy by the gift of faith. The gift of faith that these two catechumens whom we've welcomed is also searching. The gift of faith that was given to you and to me the day we were baptized. A faith that continuously need to be nourished by us. A faith that God continuously waters so that we will grow into that faith. And how do we nourish that faith? To know Christ. First and foremost, we need to know Jesus. We need to have that personal encounter, personal relationship with the Lord. And to know Him, as St. Paul writes to the people of Philippians, not the Philippines, okay? In the second reading of today, because this morning it was said a second reading to the letter to the Philippines. Okay, I want to stood up and said, I came from there. So, but it was the letter to the Philippians. And now to us, St. Paul reminding us prayer, petition. Prayer to God is the very foundation of our Christian discipleship. Do you know that the difference between a Christian, between you and those that do not believe, is that you are able to see faith, you see life differently because of the gift of faith. You are able to rejoice despite suffering, despite any pandemic that comes to life. Because God will always be, and God is always with us. Prayer is very foundational in our Christian faith. And that is what Connie and Kalani begins now to nourish into their lives. The example of their sponsor, the example of all of us, to have a moment of prayer. If you have not been praying lately, I invite you to begin that beautiful habit of prayer. Parents, the great gift that you could give to your children is to teach them how to pray, because that is the gift that they can bring, the treasure that no one can steal from them, a treasure that they can carry for the rest of their lives. Prayer is so important to us to nourish that faith so that we may be able to rejoice completely and experience the total rejoicing, the total joy that God wants us to have. And so that at the end of each day, or the beginning of a new day that God gives us, that the moment when God opens our eyes, we can ask the question. And this is the question that we must carry today as we enter into the third week of Advent. The question of the soldiers to John the Baptist, the question of the tax collectors, the question of those people who were listening to John the moment that he preached about the coming of the kingdom. What should we do? What should we do? That was the same question that was posed of Maria Rassa and Dmitry Muratov in their acceptance speech receiving the Nobel Peace Prize. They are telling the world for us to do something, for us to change the world by telling the truth and not giving the world fake news or lies. To use the social media, the modern society, the modern things that have come our way, to use them to bring the truth into surface so that progress, peace, human rights may be achieved. I didn't know until the other day, listening to their acceptance speech, that even until this time, there are so many journalists being killed because they are telling the truth to the people. I didn't know that even Facebook is a culprit of telling lies. Social media has become a tool that does not present the truth that the gospel wants us to present to the world. Therefore, there's really so much things that we need to do. The challenge, especially as I see to so many parents on how they would bring their children up to what is the reality of life and what is the truth in life. As they juggle into their work, as they juggle into the raising a family, we need to help one another, and we can begin it with prayer. We need to continue to pray for one another. We need to continue to pray that God's truth will always be the face that we show to the world in need. My brothers and sisters, as we enter this third week of Advent, as we go out into these doors of this church, that is the question that you should ask yourselves. Lord, what should I do? What should I do as I welcome you and as I prepare myself to celebrate your birth? What should I do to the world that is in the shadow of darkness? What should I do to my own community who needs to see you? Ask that question, because only the Lord can give you that answer. And I tell you, He will give you the answer. But first thing, we must ask Him. We must ask that question, what should I do?